Welcome to Zoe Crossdressing. That night, as Michael lay awake, he turned Evelyn's story over in his mind, two possible lives split by one brave choice. One path was the safe one, a long, quiet existence as Brendan. The kind of life that might look fine from the outside, but feels unfinished from within. The other was Evelyn's, shorter, yes, but blazing with color, courage, and meaning. And to Michael, there was no comparison. Evelyn didn't just live for 45 years, she filled them. With truth. With art. With love that showed up loudly and consistently. She made people feel seen. She created work that carried a pulse. She left fingerprints on hearts she never even realized she touched. As sleep finally pulled him under, something gentle settled in his chest, not the absence of grief, but the presence of peace. Evelyn's life had been a gift, to him, to their children, to everyone her honesty reached. And even though the ache of missing her never fully loosened its grip, Michael knew, with absolute certainty, she had chosen the right road. In some other version of the world, 79-year-old Brendan sat alone, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the question, what if? But in this reality, Evelyn endured, alive in every brushstroke she ever made, in every life she shifted, and in every person who learned from her example that truth is worth the risk. The next morning, Michael opened his email and found something unexpected, a publisher's proposal. They wanted to create a definitive book, one that captured Evelyn's life and legacy in full. His breath caught. Not because it was business. Because it was purpose. This wasn't just a book deal. It was another doorway for Evelyn's light to travel through. Over the next year, Michael worked closely with the author, offering memories like sacred artifacts. He unearthed sketchbooks, letters, photographs, pieces of a life that still felt close enough to touch. The process was tender and brutal in equal measure, laughter spilling out one moment, tears rising without warning the next. But he didn't stop. Because some stories are bigger than loss. Some stories are meant to outlive the person who lived them. The book, 20 Years of Truth, The Life and Art of Evelyn Marsh, released on what would have been Evelyn's 65th birthday. It didn't simply sell. It landed. It became an instant bestseller, traveling across countries and languages, reaching people who had never met Evelyn yet somehow felt like they knew her. Reviews poured in, calling it fearless, raw, unforgettable, a testament to what it means to stop performing and start living. And in the end, the message rang clear, like a signature at the bottom of every page. It's not the length of a life that defines it. It's the depth. It's the daring. It's the truth. The book's success did more than revive Evelyn's name, it reopened the world's eyes. Galleries from every corner of the art scene began reaching out, eager to host exhibitions of her work. Invitations stacked up. Openings turned into speaking requests. Cities blurred together as Michael found himself on planes and in lecture halls again, carrying Evelyn's story into rooms full of strangers who somehow already loved her. At one exhibition, after Michael finished speaking, a young art student approached him, hesitant at first, then suddenly fearless. "Mr. Marsh," they said, voice tight with awe, "I've been studying Evelyn's technique for years. The way she captured emotion in color, it's revolutionary." Michael felt his smile soften into something heavier than pride, something like gratitude. "Evelyn always said art was about truth," he replied. "She painted what she felt, not just what she saw." The student's eyes widened, like a door had opened. "That's exactly it," they said. "Her work doesn't just show you something. It's like she's speaking straight to your soul." Michael watched them disappear into the crowd, and warmth spread through him, quiet, steady, undeniable. This, he realized, was Evelyn's real legacy. Not only the canvases. Not only the acclaim. But the ripple effect, how her honesty kept giving people permission to be honest too. Later, on a calm evening back home, Michael returned to Evelyn's studio. The room still carried her, half-finished thoughts in paint, the familiar disorder of creativity, the hush of presence that grief never quite erased. He sat among her works like someone sitting beside a sleeping storm. On impulse, he reached for a small sketchbook, one he hadn't opened in years. He flipped through page after page, remembering the life behind each line, until a loose sheet slipped free and floated to the floor. A letter. Evelyn's handwriting. Dated only days before she died. Michael's hands trembled as he unfolded it. The paper felt too light for what it carried. My dearest Michael. If you're reading this, it means I've moved on to whatever comes next. I hope you'll forgive the secrecy, but I needed to leave you with these words. First and foremost, thank you. Thank you for loving me. For supporting me. For being my rock through every storm. The life we built together has been more beautiful than any dream. I need you to know something clearly, I have no regrets. The choice I made all those years ago, to live authentically, even if it meant a shorter life, was the right one. In these 20 years, I've experienced more joy, more love, more life than I ever thought possible. Please don't mourn me too long. Remember the good times. The laughter. The love. And know that wherever I am, I'm at peace. Continue to live, my love. Continue to create. To inspire. To spread kindness. And when you look at my paintings, know this, a part of me will always, always be with you. All my love, always and forever. Evelyn. By the time he reached the final line, tears blurred the ink. Michael pressed the letter to his chest as if it could close the distance between worlds. I love you too, he whispered into the stillness. Always and forever. And then, like the universe couldn't help but answer, a soft breeze moved through the studio. It stirred the curtains. Lifted the scent of lilacs from somewhere memory deep.
Michael laughed quietly through tears, because in that moment he didn't need proof. He didn't need logic. He simply knew. Any remaining doubt about Evelyn's choice dissolved. She had lived in alignment. Loved without holding back. Left an imprint that time couldn't sand away. And as the years went on, her legacy didn't fade. It expanded. Art schools dissected her technique like scripture. Psychology classes discussed her journey as a case study in selfhood, courage, and transformation. Her name kept showing up in conversations between people trying to figure out how to stop shrinking. And on what would have been Evelyn's 70th birthday, a major museum began preparing something that felt less like an exhibition and more like a coronation. And this. Paris didn't just welcome Evelyn back, it honored her. A major museum hosted a full retrospective of her work, and Michael, now in his 80s, arrived with the living proof of everything they'd built. Their children, grandchildren, and even a few great-grandchildren. As he walked the galleries, surrounded by Evelyn's canvases and the family that had grown from her love, gratitude rose in him like a tide, steady, unstoppable. Halfway through the exhibit, a small hand slipped into his. Lily, 6 years old, sharp as a spark, eyes always asking questions, tugged him closer to one of the centerpiece pieces. Evelyn's self-portrait. "Grandpa," she whispered, pointing up at the painting, "was great-grandma Evelyn really an angel?" Michael chuckled and lowered himself to Lily's height, as if this question deserved the respect of eye level. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" Lily's face opened with pure wonder. "She's so beautiful. And Mommy says she made people's lives better. Isn't that what angels do?" Something in Michael's chest tightened, then warmed. He looked up at the portrait, Evelyn's painted gaze bright with that familiar joy, that familiar mischief. Then he looked back at Lily. "You know what?" he said softly. "In a way, I think she was." Lily leaned in, listening like this was a secret. "She brought light and love into the world," Michael continued. "And she helped people find the courage to be who they really are." "That sounds pretty angelic to me." Lily nodded solemnly, absorbing it as truth. Then she wrapped her arms around him with a fierce certainty only children have. "I'm glad she was our angel, Grandpa." Michael blinked hard and stood slowly, wiping at the corner of his eye. That's when he noticed their eldest son watching them, quiet, steady, smiling like he was holding back his own swell of emotion. "You okay, Dad?" his son asked, stepping beside him. Michael kept his eyes on Evelyn's portrait a moment longer, as if he could still hear her laugh between the frames. "I've lived a long life," he said. "I've seen the world change in 100 ways. But the one constant has been the impact your mother made in the short time she had." His son slipped an arm around Michael's shoulders. "She was one of a kind." "That she was," Michael agreed. "And every day I'm grateful for the choice she made, to live authentically, to love freely, to create beautifully. She packed more life into 45 years than most people fit into a century." They stood there, the old and the new, generations stitched together, while Evelyn's work surrounded them like a language the whole family understood without needing translation. And again, peace came. Not because time had erased the loss, but because time had proven the legacy. Michael knew, without doubt, Evelyn's choice had been the right one. Her life may have been shorter than some, but it had been fully lived. And what she left behind kept growing, quietly multiplying through art, through story, through the courage she sparked in strangers. In another reality, an 89-year-old Brendan might have been sitting alone, staring down the question of the road not taken. But in this reality, Evelyn was everywhere that mattered, in her paintings, in the people she changed, and in the hearts that refused to let her disappear. When the family finally drifted toward the museum doors, Michael lingered. One last look. Evelyn's self-portrait glowed in the soft museum light, and for a split second, whether it was memory, imagination, or something kinder, Michael could almost see her wink. That mischievous smile he'd fallen in love with all those years ago curved at the edge of the paint. "Thank you," he whispered, "for everything." Outside, Paris held them in an evening hush, streetlights coming alive, the air cool and golden. Michael felt lighter than he had in years. Because Evelyn's choice had given them this, a life filled with love, purpose, and beauty. A life that kept inspiring long after her goodbye. And watching his family, Evelyn's living legacy, Michael understood the simplest truth of all. It was never about how many years you get. It's about how much life you put inside them. If you want, I can brand this even harder by adding 1. A recurring signature line you can reuse at the end of every chapter, and 2. A distinct narration style. As the years kept moving, the world changed in 100 visible ways, yet Evelyn's imprint stayed steady. Her work continued to ignite something in people. Her story continued to hand hope to the ones who felt misplaced in their own skin. And her legacy kept living, passed forward through every life she touched, like light that refuses to dim. On what would have been Evelyn's 80th birthday, a documentary about her life premiered at a major film festival. Michael, now in his 90s, seated in a wheelchair, attended with his family. Together they watched Evelyn's life widen across the screen, scene by scene, truth by truth. By the time the credits neared, there wasn't a dry eye in the theater. The film didn't only trace her evolution as an artist, it mapped her reach as a human being. It wove together interviews with artists she had influenced, people whose lives she had altered simply by being unapologetically real, and experts who spoke about the lasting weight of her work. Evelyn wasn't presented as a symbol. She was presented as what she had always been, a living, breathing proof that honesty can be a kind of revolution. One moment in particular hit Michael like a quiet blow. A reenactment of that night, the night everything split into before and after. The actress playing young Evelyn sat in stillness, then lifted her face and looked straight into the camera, eyes full of resolve and fragile hope. "I choose to live as who I truly am," she said, words that sounded less like dialogue and more like a vow. "Even if it means only 20 years. Michael's throat tightened. He felt a hand settle on his shoulder. He turned and saw their daughter beside him, tears streaming, her voice barely above a whisper. "She made the right choice, didn't she, Dad?" Michael nodded, eyes wet, certainty unshaken. "She did, sweetheart," he said. "She absolutely did." After the screening, the festival hosted a panel on Evelyn's life and work, and Michael was invited to speak. Age had slowed his body, but it hadn't thinned his voice. When he addressed the audience, it came out steady, simple, true. Evelyn used to say life isn't measured in years, Michael began. It's measured in moments. In love given and received. In truth spoken. And in lives touched. He paused, letting the words settle over the room. By that measure, he continued, looking out at a sea of faces hanging on every syllable, my wife lived a life longer and richer than most people could imagine. She knew her time was limited, and instead of shrinking, she expanded. She made every moment count. She loved fiercely, created passionately, and lived authentically. And by doing that, she showed all of us how to truly live. When he finished, the applause didn't arrive politely. It broke open. People stood. Many wiped their faces without embarrassment. And in that moment, Michael felt Evelyn's presence so strongly it was almost physical, like she was right there beside him, bright-eyed, proud, and quietly laughing the way she always did when she didn't want to admit she was moved. Later that night, back in his room at the assisted living facility, the world became small again. Michael sat with an old photo album open on his lap. Every picture was a doorway. Evelyn in her studio, paint on her hands like proof of devotion. Evelyn in the backyard with the children, mid-laugh, caught in pure joy. Evelyn speaking at a community event, purpose in her posture. Evelyn surrounded by friends, alive in the ordinary miracle of being loved. A soft knock interrupted the quiet. It was one of the night nurses, Rachel, young and kind, with a gentleness that made the room feel safer. Just checking in, Mr. Marsh, she said with a smile. Then her gaze fell to the album. Oh, are those pictures of your wife? She was beautiful. Michael nodded, then patted the seat beside him. Come sit, he said softly. Let me tell you about Evelyn, one of the night nurses, a gentle young woman named Rachel, paused by his door. Just checking in, Mr. Marsh, she said warmly. Her eyes drifted to the framed photographs nearby. Is that your wife? She was beautiful. Michael smiled and tapped the empty chair beside him.
Come, sit.
Let me tell you about Evelyn. Time slipped quietly away as he spoke. He told Rachel about meeting Evelyn at an art gallery, about her fearless honesty in living as her true self, about the laughter and devotion that carried them through the years. With every memory shared, Michael felt a comforting warmth bloom in his chest. This, he realized, was Evelyn's real immortality, not only in her paintings or public recognition, but in the stories passed on, the love remembered, the lives she continued to touch. When Rachel finally stood to leave, promising to return for more stories, Michael leaned back and closed his eyes. He pictured Evelyn as she once was, radiant, bold, alive with passion and joy. We did good, didn't we, my love? He whispered into the stillness. And just for a fleeting second, he could swear he heard her laugh, that bright, musical sound that had always filled a room with light. Sleep came gently. Peace followed. Morning arrived wrapped in pale dawn. Michael woke slowly, the echo of Evelyn lingering like a tender ache. He reached for his glasses, stiff fingers unsteady, until the world came back into focus. His gaze settled on the photo beside his bed, Evelyn mid-laughter, auburn hair glowing in the sun. Their 10th anniversary. Good morning, my love, he murmured, brushing the frame. A soft knock broke the quiet.
Come in, he called.
The door opened to reveal his granddaughter, Sophia. Her warm brown eyes, so much like Evelyn's, sparkled as she smiled. Morning, Grandpa. Michael straightened, his face lighting up. I'm better now that you're here. Sophia kissed his cheek and sat beside him. I have news. You remember the art scholarship named after Grandma Evelyn? His interest sharpened immediately. The scholarship had been her dream, supporting young artists who used creativity to express truth and inspire change. I've been chosen to serve on the selection committee this year, Sophia said, barely containing her excitement. And I was hoping you might join us. Help choose the recipient. Emotion caught in Michael's throat. He squeezed her hand. It would be an honor. Sophia smiled wide. The committee meets next week. We've arranged everything so you can review the portfolios here. As she spoke, Michael felt a familiar spark awaken inside him. This was another way to keep Evelyn's spirit alive, to guide the future she had always believed in. "You know," he said gently, interrupting her, "your grandmother would be so proud of you." Sophia's eyes shimmered. "I hope so," she whispered. "I just want to do right by her." And in that moment, Michael knew they both already were. "Right by her memory," Sophia said softly. Michael nodded. He understood that weight better than anyone. "You already are, sweetheart. Every single day. You, your siblings, your cousins, you're all living the values Evelyn believed in so fiercely. Authenticity, creativity, compassion." They sat together in an easy silence, both wrapped in thoughts of her. At last, Sophia rose, smoothing her skirt. "I should head out. I have a class to teach," she said. "But I'll be back this afternoon with the scholarship materials, okay?" Michael squeezed her hand once more. "I'll be here." When the door closed, he released a slow, satisfied breath. This was what Evelyn had always hoped for, not a legacy trapped in frames and galleries, but one carried forward in people's lives. He glanced at the photo beside his bed and smiled. "Well, my love," he murmured, "looks like we've got work to do." The day unfolded as usual. Breakfast in the dining hall, physical therapy, a slow walk through the gardens, but something had shifted. Beneath the routine, Michael felt renewed. Purpose hummed quietly in his chest. His thoughts stayed with the scholarship, with the young artists whose futures might be shaped by it. That afternoon, Sophia returned just as promised, arms full of portfolios. She set them carefully on the small table, placing a notepad and pen beside them. "All right, Grandpa," she said, pulling up a chair. "Ready?" Michael nodded and opened the first folder. Instantly, color leapt from the page. Bold, fearless, alive. It stirred something deep within him. "This one," he said, tapping a striking piece. "Tell me about the artist." Sophia checked her notes. "Javier Morales. First-generation college student from Los Angeles. He says his work explores identity and belonging." Michael studied the painting again. The struggle was unmistakable, raw, unfiltered, honest. It reminded him painfully and beautifully of Evelyn's earliest work. Everything she had ever stood for was right there in those brushstrokes. They moved from one portfolio to the next, hours slipping by unnoticed. Each artist told a different story. Each voice was brave in its own way. Michael found himself deeply moved by the courage and vulnerability laid bare on every page. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the room, Sophia stretched and stifled a yawn. "Maybe we should stop for today. We can continue tomorrow." Michael set the portfolio aside with a reluctant smile. "You're right. But Sophia, this has been wonderful."
Truly.
"Thank you for letting me be part of this." She leaned over and kissed his cheek.
"Thank you, Grandpa."
"Your insight means more than you know." As she gathered the folders, Michael leaned back, a quiet sense of fulfillment settling over him. This was Evelyn's legacy at work, lifting new voices, nurturing talent, making space for truth. "You know," he said as Sophia reached the door, "your grandmother always believed art was how truth speaks to the world. I see that truth in every one of these." Sophia paused, emotion shining in her eyes. "That's why the scholarship matters," she said. "It's not just funding. It's recognition. It's belief." Michael nodded, his throat tight. "Exactly." When she left, promising to return the next day, Michael turned toward the window. The sky was ablaze in pink and gold, a sunset so vivid it felt alive. "Oh, Evelyn," he whispered, "if only you could see this. The seeds you planted are still growing, still blooming. 20 years of truth, and your light is still changing the world." Thank you for watching.